equipment to the Ministry of Health to assist in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Dlamini said more research has revealed that the vaccine can be stored at normal freezing temperatures in the country for not less than 1 month. Our Western Guta attended the event.
The World Health Organization country director Nonhlanhla Dlamini says research has shown that African countries, including Malawi, can use the Pfizer vaccine in traditional -2 degrees Celsius temperatures, but not exceeding 1 month. This is in contrast to earlier reports and the storage of -60 degrees Celsius in other countries, which Malawi cannot afford. Dlamini has added that this is an opportunity for the countries to use different vaccines and choose on the vaccine to use, this among the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer.
As we're now doing the dose sharing, we will now be getting vaccines from different manufacturers. There's also the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, again through the dose sharing scheme.
She made the remarks when she handed over for the Global Fund 64 motorcycles, 56 ambulances and other medical equipment to the Malawi government, where Minister of Health Kumbize Kanodo Chiponda appealed for a spirit of care for resources, lamenting that there is too much wastage of resources in public hospitals.
We need to have very good maintenance programs for our equipment, because we have noted that in most of the district hospitals, you find a lot of wastage in terms of equipment which has been damaged, in terms of ambulances. Maybe they just need a small thing to fix, but we lack a proper maintenance programs. So we need to take care of these things.
Malawi sought a $76 million assistance from the Global Fund, of which $3 million has been used to procure the ambulances. Reporting for Zodiac, this is Western Guta.
Meanwhile, a medical practitioner, Dr. Yota Moyo, is suggesting mass COVID-19 testing in the country to curb further spread of the virus. Dr. Moyo argues that the current setup of testing only those suspicious is not helping matters, as people are spreading the virus unknowingly. Joseph Maziz has filed this report.
Of late, Salima district has been registering an increase in COVID-19 related deaths. However, according to the environmental health officer at the district health office, Noel Kunga, who is also COVID-19 desk officer, most of them are due to the fact that people are reporting late for medical attention.
Most of them are presenting with severe complications as regards COVID-19, which is giving us like a challenge in terms of the management.
Most hospitals in Malawi are only testing those with severe signs, and in some hospitals are even denying to test those with just mild signs, arguing most facilities are running low on testing kits. However, a health expert, Dr. Yota Moyo, is lobbying for mass testing and calling on government to ensure that there is enough testing kits when people need it.
Most of the countries which are aware of the COVID status of their people, they are usually advocating mass testing. And mass testing has the advantages that it's likely to catch people who are sick and you're going to treat them. Sometimes you catch people who are SARS-CoV-2 positive but not sick. Those people can easily lead you to contacts which may actually be sick and catch them and get into treatment.
A health rights activist, Maziko Matemba, on the other side, believes people in the country need to do more to prevent further spreading of the virus. Currently, the country is hit hard by COVID-19 third wave, with reports indicating that major referral hospitals are overwhelmed. Reporting for Zodiac from Salima, I am Joseph Mazizi.
President Lazarus Chakwera says Malawi has for long been subjected to expensive means of transporting goods because successful governments neglected rail transport. Speaking when he opened the Shiri North Railway Bridge in Balaga, Chakwera said his administration will revitalize the rail sector to save the country 40% of fleet cost annually. During the event, Chakwera also complained that bureaucracy in government institutions is scaring away investors in the infrastructure sector as they are forced to endure a long process to have their offers accepted. Alex Banda reports.
On Tuesday, President Lazarus Chakwera officially opened the $13 million 165-meter Nkaya Bridge on the Shire North Railway in Balaka district. Here, President Chakwera shared his personal experience where investors have approached him expressing their displeasure of how long and cumbersome the process is to get a no objection to implement their projects is. The president arrayed fears the current system breeds a ground for corruption, ordering the Minister of Transport to overhaul the current system and present the new proposed ideas in the next sitting of Parliament.
In many cases, an investor will come to Malawi, go to the Ministry of Transport and express their interest to construct a road or a rail, but they will be sent to the Minister of Finance for a letter, no objection or something, then be sent to the Minister of Justice to have the MOU scrutinized, and then be made to wait for months without any response or decision and without even the courtesy of communication. Minister, I want this nonsense to stop. I'm therefore directing that you fix this because we don't need that mess.
In an interview, Deputy Minister of Transport Nasem Dogojaola said she will proceed as ordered.
Yeah, since it's a directive, we'll go through the directive. But it's a process because for one to be awarded a contract, he or she has to go to the Justice, OPC, Ministry of Transport. So it's a procedure. And we just need maybe to resign the circular that was done before.
Central East African Railways has been upgrading the entire railway project. For Zodiak in Blantyre, this is Alex Banda.
Meanwhile, there are mixed views on President Chakwera's internal travel, with commentators faulting the head of state for attending events which could be delegated to cabinet ministers or other government officials. In separate interviews, political commentator Ernest Tindwa and social commentator Rafik Hajat have advised State House to always ensure there is a balance on resources being spent against the gains realized from such events to avoid public condemnation. But presidential spokesperson Brian Banda says the president spends 85% of his work in office and travels only where it is necessary. Winston Gamia reports.
President Lazarus Chakwera has presided over the official launch of the Shire North Railway Bridge in Balaka district. But this presidential engagement has been singled out by some Malawians, especially on the social media platforms, as one of those that could be delegated to cabinet ministers or other government officials. Political commentator Ernest Tindwa says State House should always ensure the head of state attend to events that have value to national development to avoid public condemnation.
There has to be that balance. So whether he delegates or not, it's up to the president. But for me, most projects have to be substandard, and that aspires, in my view. The president will be paying frequent visits to these sites to make sure that they are of the standard that his administration requires.
Social commentator Rafik Hajat says the president's engagement to do with the railway transport is vital, saying the sector has for so long been neglected.
Our railways are in dire need of renovation, upgrading. They will provide a significant lifeline, which is far more cost-effective for our imports and exports than our road transport, which is currently the case, even in the case of fuel.
Presidential spokesperson Brian Banda says the president spends 85% of his work in office and travels only where it is necessary.
President Chakwera spends 85% of his working hours in the office. The notion that he spends too much time traveling, to us, is therefore a total fabrication. For example, in the past 12 months, the president has only done 2 inspections of works under the Ministry of Transport.
This is Winston Kaimira reporting for Zodiac.
Mzuzu University optometry students have threatened to continue staging a sit-in until a decision to withdraw 2 of their colleagues from the program is reversed. President of the Mzuzu University Optometry Students Association, MUOSA, Alik Kachigwada, says the students were wrongfully withdrawn as they were supposed to sit for supplementary examinations, unlike being withdrawn. Mzuzu University Registrar Iona Mungwira asked for more time before commenting on the matter. You're watching the news here on Zodiac. We'll be back with more after this.
We all start differently, but we can all start with the strongest protection. Because some start early, others start late. Some from little homes, others from big ones. Some start together or all on their own.
It doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start strong. With new Colgate's Maximum Cavity Protection. Now with fluoride plus arginine for 4 times more strengthening power. So that you can give them the strongest start to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay strong.
I got a call from my driver telling me that my motor vehicle was involved in an accident in Balaka. I was shocked and very worried, considering that the car was only 4 months old.
Get your vehicle covered against road accidents, fire, theft, and third-party liabilities at CIC General Insurance Limited.
I submitted all my claim documents to my insurer, CIC, and within 14 days, I got my settlement through a bank transfer. I was very delighted and inspired. Later, I managed to purchase a replacement vehicle. Throughout the process, CIC staff were very diligent, friendly, accommodating, and professional all the time.
Our professional and friendly staff will ensure that you get the best customer experience that is second to none. For more information, visit our offices in Lilongwe at Area 3 Judge Building, opposite the District Commissioner's office. And in Blantyre, visit our offices at Livingstone House behind Plantation House.
I recommend CIC all day, every day for all your insurance needs.
CIC, we keep our word.
Malawi, Malawi, masompenya amalawi watujukula Malawi 2063 akale wozimira bae ufika 2063 akale wokomera aliyense achinyamata tigwirane manja tujukula Malawi achinyamata tikale patsogolo tujukula Malawi 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 wozimira bae Malawi Malawi wokomera aliyense Malawi 2063 kusinda dziko lathu mokomera aliyense.
Welcome back. A look at the headlines as we continue. WHO says African countries, including Malawi, can now access and use the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. President Chakwera says Malawi has been subjected to expensive means of transportation due to neglect of rail transport. Malawians working in shops in South Africa fear for their jobs following violent protests in parts of the country. And in sports, Flames bow out of this year's Kosovo Championship in South Africa. Now, moving on with the news. Experts in SADC fear the unrest in South Africa has potential to damage business competence in the region and have appealed to the South African government to resolve the matter with urgency. The experts from Malawi, Zimbabwe, Mozambique and South Africa have made the call amid fears that the commodity supply chain across the region would be disrupted because the key trade route, KwaZulu-Natal, has been affected by the protests. Anna Femramba has filed this report.
The unrest in South Africa has ignited more calls for integration in the Southern Africa Development Community SADC region, as it has potential to affect economic livelihoods in countries around South Africa. Although the unrest has been sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma, experts in the region believe it has much to do with socio-economic terrain for citizens in South Africa and SADC member states. Chris Maroleng, Executive Director for the Good Governance Africa in South Africa, says the situation not only affects the Rainbow Nation, but also region, as South Africa hosts people of different nationalities.
Due to these disruptions, the region could experience, depending on the time that it takes to kickstart these logistical supply lines that are to gain ground on the supplies that were supposed to go up into the rest of the continent.
Zimbabwean Lottery Peace Fellow and Institute for Peace and Economics, Ambassador Patience Rusali, fears the situation is damaging business competence and will affect trade and commerce in the SADC region.
As SADC, one of the lessons that we can on regional integration with the situation at hand is we need to upgrade and work on our operational and infrastructure inefficiencies.
Malawi's good governance expert Victor Chipofya Jr. says while South Africa is a sovereign state, what is happening in that country could have effect on economics around it.
I would expect South Africa as a sovereign state to work together with these different embassies of countries that are there in South Africa to make sure that they are protected within the confines of South Africa.
In Mozambique, Dr. Craig Moffat, a security and governance expert, cautions that the goings-on in South Africa would have long-term effect on the region, hence the need for concerted efforts to help stop unrest.
They can sit down and formulate policies at that point, and it's unfortunate that it will have to be retrospective and not proactive. So I think each country can proactively implement means and measures to address these incidents of uprising.
A number of people have died and some 500 people arrested in the violence that has erupted in the wake of the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma. But South Africa is trade route for most countries in the SADC, such as Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia, whose supply could be interrupted by the unrest. The violence is also affecting investment, forcing the government to deploy soldiers to help police quell the growing.
Meanwhile, Malawians working in shops in South Africa fear for their jobs following the protests that are grounding businesses. In an interview with Zodiak, some Malawians say it will take some time for shop owners to recover from the losses. More than 40 people have been killed in the protests sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma, Nonkubi reports.
Some South African citizens have been holding violent protests in some major cities of the country, demanding the release of their former president, Jacob Zuma, who was jailed for contempt of court. Zuma defied a court order to testify before the Commission of Inquiry in a corruption case he is answering during his tenure of office. Speaking to Zodiac from the Rainbow Nation, Florence Kalema says people, including Malawians who are working in the affected shops, are likely to lose their jobs.
Most Malawians who are working in shops has lost their jobs, and we are living in fear. We don't know what will happen.
And from Johannesburg, Stephen Kadua told Zodiac that many Malawians were panicking to go to work due to the unrest. Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Rejoice Shumba said government was following events in the Rainbow Nation with keen interest. She warned Malawians not to take part in the protests to avoid being caught on the wrong side of the law.
We are also advising them to report to our embassies if they find any problems regarding the issues that are happening there in South Africa.
As of Monday evening, over 160 people were arrested in connection to the protests. South African government has since deployed soldiers to help restoring peace and order in the affected cities. For Zodiac, this is Noah Nkubwi reporting.
And now to sports news. Malawi national football team, the Flames, are out of this year's COSAFA Senior Championship tournament in South Africa following a 1-1 draw against Namibia. This was a must-win game for the Flames, who have had a frustrating tournament, losing 2-0 against Mozambique and drawing against Zimbabwe in the opener. Sambanda reports.
The 5 changes which Flames tactician Meke Mwase made to the side that lost to Mozambique on Sunday didn't have any impact, as the Namibian Brave Warriors were the first to score through Kambindo in a match the Flames needed to stamp authority and demonstrate their desire to progress in the competition. Mwase opted for Mighty Wanderers custodian William Tole in goals. For the out-of-form Ernest Kakobwe, rested Nixon Nyasuru for Silver Strikers fullback Nixon Mwase, and also gave the central bankers and current TNM Super League top goal scorer Maxwell Podogustin his maiden senior debut, but the changes missed their targets. An improved second-half performance saw the Flames grab an equalizer through Blue Eagles midfielder Misiam Muhone, who also came off the bench, but the stalemate wasn't enough for Malawi to survive. The Flames will on Wednesday face Senegal in their final group match, but the encounter is a mere formality. Meanwhile, football analyst George Kaudzamasina says the poor showing at COSAFA is a timely wake-up call for Meke Mwase to revise his tactical approach ahead of the 2022 World Cup qualifiers this September.
I think the results in South Africa has given Meke Mwase a heads up in terms of what is expected in the qualifiers, but also what type of players he has to feature. The changes which Mwase did, mainly on Chimozi, but also Messia Muhoni, and even Chikoti, has proved that these are key players for Malawi, and it's unfortunate that they have just been warming the bench and others not being called.
This was the 60th COSAFA Cup meeting between Malawi and Namibia since the tournament's inception in 1997. Namibia have now managed 4 wins, with Malawi earning a single victory and a single draw between them.
In other news, Ghana's First Lady has offered to refund all allowances she has received since the president assumed office in 2017 following a public outcry over salaries. Rebecca Akufo-Addo also said she would not accept a salary that was recently approved by the country's parliament. She said this in a statement that she had decided to refund all monies paid to her as allowances amounting to $151,000. She said she did not request to be paid and had only received that which existed and attached to her status, albeit informally. Last week, Ghanaians expressed outrage at the decision by MPs to approve salaries for the wives of the president and vice president for the supportive role they play. And that's about what we had time for in this news edition. But before we go, a look at the headlines. WHO says African countries, including Malawi, can now access and use the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. President Chakwera says Malawi has been subjected to expensive means of transportation due to neglect of rail transport. Malawians working in shops in South Africa fear for their jobs following violent protests in parts of the country. And in sports, Flames again fall short at this year's COSAFA Championship in South Africa. My name is Job Frank Chakaza. Thanks for watching.
Majeremos,